Hi everyone, I'm Anthony O'Flynn. This is an energy update for the winter solstice here in Australia. Winter solstice will be at 6:25 p.m. on the 21st of June, which is obviously this week. And it's also the moment when the sun makes its ingress into Cancer, which is a cardinal water sign. So it marks the turning point of the shortest day of the year as we gradually move back towards the light. And obviously in the Northern Hemisphere, this is the opposite with the longest day of the year and their journey back towards the shorter days and the winter. So this polarity can be seen everywhere with the equinoxes, the solstices, basically combining to make these four cardinal points, these four critical moments in astrology, and they have a deep esoteric significance. So when I gave my annual forecast at the start of 2026, I give a tagline each year, and the tagline that I kept getting through the spring was 2026, the year of destabilisation. And obviously I didn't realize at the time how accurate this would be, in the sense that we are experiencing such a year of deep upheaval, of deep turmoil and continual change, that the very institutions, like the bedrock of our society, we can see everywhere is crumbling now. And the staggering pace of change is spectacular to watch, as more and more people are coming forward and noticing that the status quo, or their previous life, is no longer working for them, that their values are changing, that their outlook on life is changing. It's creating a lot of deep inner confusion about what am I even doing here in the first place, which is, in my view, the deepest place where it needs to get to before we experience a genuine shift, is this existential crisis of what am I doing here in the first place? I know all about this because I went through it in my 20s, and this led to my ongoing spiritual awakening at the time. So what I'm seeing, at least, is for many people, they're questioning the status quo, at least as the doorway into their spiritual awakening, is the various social, economic and political issues that we're facing, not just here in Australia, but around the world. And I've decided, after much contemplation, to make this update a positive one, because I can see now that people are in so much emotional, psychological and spiritual pain, that adding to the mental burden that people are experiencing, and the uncertainty and the various challenges that people don't really see an easy way out of, might not be so constructive. And that's really a theme for the astrological moment that is coming next month, and which I'll get to, which is a very positive one, and something that we can hopefully use as a springboard to create this energetic momentum to create the change and welcome in where we need to go. Now, having said that, at the deepest levels, what's occurring is this true paradigm shift. As I've predicted, and as I considered, the things are happening now in 2026 are completely as I thought it would occur, at least in some of the aspects of what's occurring, that what I always refer to as the lower levels of the awakening, that everyone will find out about this, the nature of inflation, the true cost of inflation due to the expansion of the money supply, that all the various noise that you're seeing about the political problems and so on here, around the world, basically, well, this will only intensify. But the point is it's shaking people out of their slumber. It's shaking people out of their status quo, which is having a really profound effect, that it's moving the needle in a lot of different ways. So I won't be going into a lot of these topics here in this video tonight, simply because of the time, and I don't really want to offer just sound bites so much anymore in some of the long form videos that I make, because it's just not really unearthing the depth of what's occurring here. Because in each of the different challenges that we're facing is the lesson that we need to experience to move to our deeper level of awakening. And I can see that there was absolutely a split in the awakening community last year, that certain different aspects of that group or certain mindsets are a little bit being left behind, in the sense that things are moving forward so quickly now that we need to think about solutions, and also what are we creating instead of what are we reacting to. And that was one of my forecasts at the start of the year, is that 2026 there'll be this emphasis on the paradox, or the polarity between noise and signal. And a lot of people are, because of this outrage, thing that's basically on a daily level about something, which I'm not saying that's not valid or that's not warranted, but depending on where you are in your own personal awakening, that may not be something that is constructive. So we're witnessing at the same time the destruction of this paradigm, and I don't mean it like necessarily organically, but the decline of this paradigm and the construction of the new paradigm. And I think that people are giving way too much of their attention to the decline of the old paradigm, the existing paradigm. And I don't think that's really helping people become empowered. And that's one of the biggest themes of all that I talked about in my book, in the awakening community, the truther community, whatever name you want to give to it, that this state of disempowerment is characterized throughout the awakening community, and it's actually intensifying. And in this way, we are perpetuating victimhood, and we're perpetuating disempowerment. And this disempowerment shows up in our attitudes, our values, how we're using social media, and also our philosophy on life. And we really need to start to think about how am I just perpetuating the state of fear, the state of anger, the state of outrage, ultimately the state of disempowerment, because it's very difficult to create constructively from a place of disempowerment. So, and the phase that we're in now will only intensify. The astrological configurations are supporting this, and it really does ask the question, do you want to focus on the noise or connect to the signal? And I can see that a lot of people are actually thriving in this chaos, and they're also doing well financially and about to, some people, this isn't financial advice, are about to make like life-changing wealth, because they understand the tectonic plates of what's changing in terms of global finances, the blockchain, the tokenization of assets, the complete debasement of currency, and all these sorts of things. So none of this is financial advice, but there is in every crisis there's an opportunity, and it means that we are on the precipice of great change, and other people would argue we're already in the middle of it, and I would tend to agree with that now. But I would say that although the new paradigm is emerging, it's not as visible yet. It's more, it depends on how you look or your perspective, but definitely we are seeing this chaos, which is sadly affecting so many people here in Australia. And it really is a burden to carry when you are aware of these things, and also you understand who the puppeteers are in the background who are creating the chaos. But as I said before, as using the analogy, if my house is burning down, do I put the fire out first, or do I try and find out who lit the fire in the first place? Well, I think that, in my view at least, that we need to put the fire out, and that is speaking to a lot of broader topics that we are experiencing here in Australia and around the world. So what I wanted to say before I continue into the crux of these themes that I'm going to unpack tonight is that if you want to follow my work, and I'm launching an entirely new base of work next month, then go to my website, anthonyo'flynn.com. I'll put a link somewhere. Sign up for the newsletter, and I'll introduce you to what I'll be offering, in what context and what capacity, because I don't really feel that the conversation around the shift and the and the crisis that we're in, there's any middle ground. And so from this point of view, I'll be offering things from a much more esoteric point of view to go into this psyche, the psychology, the spiritual energetic frequencies that are changing and how to work with those shifts instead of resisting them. Because I still feel at the moment that there's just so much resistance to what's occurring, and it's not healthy for us. And we're simply not hardwired in terms of our nervous system or our emotion or our psyche to literally take on board every single crisis and problem and social difficulty every day. And that's what we're doing, many of us. And I don't think it's helping us connect to a state of silence and stillness or creating a blueprint for us to work through these things, because there's no one coming to save us. There's no politician, there's no external savior. We need to move into this state of maturity and adulthood in order to start to really mature spiritually and start to truly awaken. So this will be a whole new era for me personally. I'm excited about it. I've actually been waiting for some transits to begin, and it will be something hopefully that will help people navigate this ongoing planetary shift that we're in. So sign up to my website, anthonyo'flynn.com, or sign up to my newsletter there, and then I'll inform you of what's going to happen, how, and so on, and you can see for yourself if that's something for you. So further to that, I wanted to say that this astrological configuration within Saturn in Aries, Pluto, Aquarius, Neptune in Aries, Uranus in Gemini, these outer planets are now all in fire and air signs, which really contributes to the acceleration of change and also the ease of change. When the outer planets are affecting more the collective, the more transpersonal. So it means that it's affecting us all together in certain ways. There's certain themes, there's certain new ideas popping up, there's certain new ways of thinking. And I'm really seeing this, that more and more people are actually challenging the status quo. They are actually, should make this point clearly, there are a lot of people, as I can tell you from my own experience of what I went through in the 90s, that they are actually going through a spiritual awakening, but they don't realize it yet. Like, it might not make sense for even some years. And it will mean in the time we're in that they're not going to go through some sort of cliched, externalized awakening of what, a spiritual person would dress like or look like, or, have a certain tattoo of a certain symbol or something. Nothing like that. It's actually going deeper than that for a lot of people, that they're starting to question, why they're here and what they want to experience in life, and see that the way they've been living no longer serves them. So for many people, things have been great, but they're outgrowing their old life, and this is to be expected. This is what I thought would happen. The way it unfolds, of course, is going to be very unique. How you're experiencing your own soul destiny, your own manifestation of the growth on your own journey will be very unique, but there will be some broader themes that apply to all of us in the same or similar way. So, this idea, particularly of Uranus literally entering Gemini just recently, is this idea of the Great Awakener, and for it to be suddenly, and combined with Gemini, because it's mutable air, that it allows this flow. It's like there's nothing holding it back anymore. It's not like there's so many earth signs, and not that they're better or worse than the air or fire signs, but there is like a more of a malleability, which is Gemini, which is malleable air. So it's the most dispersed sign in the zodiac, which means that the potential for this fluctuation is much easier, particularly at the mental level, this Mercurian themes. And it means that, for example, the flow of information won't be able to be stopped. We are now in the literal age of truth. and that Jupiter moves into Leo later this month means that there is this expression of the light which is characterized by Leo. So we have this idea of everything that Jupiter touches expands, it grows, and also this idea of the sun being the ruling planet of Leo, that it illuminates. And this means that nothing is left but the light. And it's also an invitation for us to move out of this hibernation state of Jupiter in Cancer, which has been at least felt very much like me, and more prioritizing on domestic things or home things, being perhaps more insular, these sorts of Cancerian themes, to more this illumination and leadership and the idea of self-expression, which is characterized through Leo. So it makes for a very exciting time astrologically, but also people starting to learn to have this greater discernment and to learn to trust the inner journey, or the voice of their soul, and the inner journey that's unfolding, and the direction that may change suddenly for people in different ways. Now, of course, the focus, at least if you're looking at social media every day, is on the ills of society and everything, and it's justifiable. It is deeply concerning as to what's occurring, at least here in Australia. But can we grow through that? Can we learn to be more resilient? Can we learn to see the signposts of what we need to learn in perhaps to accelerate our growth so these circumstances can shift? Or will we remain stuck and perpetuating the same cycle over and over again? Because as I see it at the moment, there is a certain percent, I'm not going to say what it is, what I think it is tonight, at least in this video, that there's a certain percentage of people that I see they cannot awaken. I mean, even years after the whole COVID era, they're still living in this illusion of propaganda, and it's difficult to accept that that's the path that they're on. But some will change, some already have changed, some have used it as a stepping stone for transformation and also for humility. But some won't. Some have doubled down on their own belief system and so on. And there's no really changing for that. You can't really even look at that from a point of view of right or wrong. But in a broader sense, the polarity that's occurring now is actually in some ways constructive, because it's breaking up the status quo. And at least this kind of attitude that we've grown up with, that politics shouldn't be talked about and religion shouldn't be talked about, that's changing very quickly now. So people are now starting to have more conversations about these topics, even if they're a little bit rough around the edges, or they're uninformed, or they're quite childish and so on. This is the beginning of a more sophisticated world outlook, where because of this crisis that we're going through, people are now being forced to look at things and perhaps talk about things that are different than your average talk about the World Cup or the footy or the beer or the surf conditions or whatever's going on, because there's a real challenge going on everywhere now to these different points of or aspects of our life that are requiring they're demanding our attention. And to me, it seems that this is at least the beginning of some people and it's really quite interesting to see some celebrities and even journalists start to question the status quo, to question the mainstream narrative. Now, that's a whole other topic, which I won't go into here tonight, but it shows that the needle is moving in the collective. And the collective is starting to question the status quo, which is all about 2026, the year of destabilisation, because the destabilisation is an invitation to change, and the planetary configurations now are inviting rapid change. And even if it's at a mental level in terms of something like Gemini and even Pluto in Aquarius, because this is the air signs, and in a way of understanding tantric yoga, the air element would be related to Vijnanamaya Kosha, the mental body. So we are in terms of astrology and this way of looking at the mental body as the mind, we are basically inviting in this contemplation, at least in the beginning. And this combined with Neptune in Aries is taking this sort of spirituality, which has been in Pisces. So it's very much this mystical, contemplative, internalized way of being into Aries and taking action. And this is the same with Saturn having this influence as well in Aries, that now we're becoming more embodied to actually get out there and make things happen, to take action, which is really characterized by this cardinal fire, which is Aries, to perhaps just get in there and make something happen. So this innovation of Uranus, everything I'm coming to now, is perhaps the focal point for next month, which is the positive message, at least in this video, instead of just blackpilling people. I mean, some people are going to go through having the black pill before they take the red pill, and then they finally get into the golden pill. Everyone will have a unique journey through this, but at least for some people, the black pill is at least shaking them out of their slumber. It's like, I kind of use this analogy that the awakening would be like a vortex, expanding and drawing everyone in, because the status quo is being shook up here. And this means that people cannot avoid this anymore. They can't bypass it. They can't check out. They can't numb out. They can't have all these useless coping mechanisms, which you'll also see that some people will go down the path of that as well, because they don't have this inner groundedness, this understanding of what's happening at a bigger level in terms of this global paradigm shift, the shift in the yugas and these astrological configurations. So people who are getting educated at a metaphysical level, at an energetic level, will naturally be more buoyant, will naturally be able to be more intuitive about what to expect with these cycles that we're moving through, which is, it's quite profound, and we're really getting to the crux of it now. And this is the premise of my book, that 2020 to 2040 are the key years of this global shift. So this is emphasized by this famous French astrologer, André Barbault, who called this configuration that's coming up in July 19, it really begins, as, quote, the most beautiful configuration of the 21st century. This guy was a very profound astrologer who actually studied the collective shifts and the configurations of the planet to produce various social outcomes and influences. And he actually, through the use of astrology, actually prophesies the pandemic beginning in January 2020. Prophesy is not really the correct word in the context of astrology, but that he actually realized that this would happen. So this famous astrologer has basically said that this configuration on the 19th of July is not only a rare one, but it's going to be incredibly profound, and it's what he referred to as the cradle. And this is when Jupiter, Pluto, Uranus, and Neptune are all going to be at 4 degrees. So there is this sacred geometry in the chart as well. And because they're a lot of the outer planets, they will affect the collective. Okay, Jupiter is not, but whatever Jupiter touches expands. It amplifies everything. And because they're the outer planets, they don't shift that quickly, and this influence will remain. Now, after looking at this and contemplating it for a while, the feeling I'm getting is this one word to sum it up is radiance, that there will be an emerging radiance. Now, it may not appear outwardly in the sense that you may evaluate someone's life or whatever as, they're struggling with different things, but an inner radiance will begin, and this will basically pave the way forward for them to create this outer joy, outer abundance, whatever it is that there's a feeling of lack, whether it's health or something like that. So this is also related to 4 in the tarot, which is the Emperor, which is structure and authority. So this is basically going to go through a big change. I mean, really, for me, is the way I see it, 2026 has been like an earthquake. I am amazed at the number of people who are coming out, who are finding their voice, who are calling out the propaganda, the deception, the darkness, all these things. And they are doing it with a lot of passion and enthusiasm. And me, being a yogi, being an intuitive, I can see that it's a soul path. So it means it won't go away. It's not a phase. We saw a lot of the kind of 2020 influences and so on. They came and went. And in some ways, they have lit a spark. There's been a catalyst there for this truther movement, which, okay, you can argue it's gone back even to 9/11 and even before then, depending on, how you want to define it. But this is just something of a rebellion and a dissent. Whereas I see now we're on the cusp of more proactive, positive, engaged, co-creator, new paradigm birthing way of being, which is really exciting. And I think that this is just the sort of the beginning of this. It's like the glimmer of this. So we can see that this is going a lot further than where it is now. So I think it's important to really not fall into the divide and conquer strategy of the puppeteers, because that's becoming apparent that this is the great deception of our time, is to divide and conquer on all the ways that they are pushing it in the media and in the social fabric of society. And I don't mean this in a way that unity is supporting the inversion, the inverted reality, actually, which is part of this deceptive rhetoric. And you can see this clearly. I don't mean it like that. I mean it more that we have to find the ways that we have the common ground and agree on, and go from there. And in this way, we can find our voice and find our cohesive identity together. And this will be extremely challenging, because these techniques are very sophisticated and they're very effective. And you really have to look at how much the ways the methods of keeping people ignorant and dumbed down and completely clueless about what's going on. And if you actually step back from it, you can actually see that they're actually really effective, or at least have been. It's fading now, the effectiveness, and they have been extremely efficient. But now we're starting to see that the light's coming in everywhere, and the light is illuminating the darkness. It might be a simple metaphor. I'm not going into the noise, but the signal is that the light is continually illuminating the darkness. And that's probably the most important thing, to have this faith, to have this conviction that regardless of the personal tests and challenges that you're going through now, that the light is continually illuminating the darkness. But this has to be a metaphor for our own being. That's the first thing. That instead of we're like trying to illuminate the darkness in others, oh, you don't understand this, and you're wrong because of this, and I'm right because of that. And basically, often can be done with ego. You can still tell someone, hey brother, this is not the truth of this situation, in a compassionate, sincere, authentic way. But unfortunately, we're still at the stage collectively, and I don't mean this as a criticism, but just an observation, that we're still doing this with a lot of ego. And once we can kind of sort of smooth that out more and come from more of a heart-centered place and less of a place of righteousness and superiority, then we can make profound progress as far as illuminating this darkness, because the first job is for us to illuminate the darkness within. And this is ignorance, and this ignorance is causing us suffering in in various ways and in subconscious ways that we don't actually understand or can't even identify in our own being, which is ultimately the shadow. And that is basically our first port of call, our first goal, our first purpose. So I'm going to leave that there. I had an entire other theme to unpack tonight, which was the ongoing disclosure that is occurring, official disclosure with the various tranches of the US government. And that entire, wow, that's a huge topic. In my view, the in UFO, UAP, ET nature of reality is, at least maybe that's subjective for me, but it is perhaps the defining topic of this entire awakening, because it opens the door to so many things in terms of spirituality, free energy, metaphysics, our place in the universe, our place in the solar system, who we are, who is the creator, the idea of the higher self, interdimensionality, spiritual evolution, technology, healing modalities, the whole bit. I mean, there is nothing that this topic will not open the doorway to, and obviously we're experiencing a form of managed disclosure. It's interesting depending on how you view it. There's a lot of this kind of rejection of at least what's happening. But I can tell you this with absolute certainty. What is occurring now is a deliberate attempt to completely move the needle, of the belief systems and ultimately the consciousness of humanity by the powers that be. So this whole thing with disclosure and all the so-called whistleblowers and everything, I mean, I could speak about this literally for hours, but I'm going to wrap this video up. It is basically the effect, and what's not being talked about even in the UFO rhetoric and influence and so on is the cause. And in this way, from this point of view, the entire misdirection of effect is being focused on, which is, again, the excellent way that they capture people's attention and funnel it. The narrative of disclosure is only the effect. It is not the cause. Questions such as, why is this occurring now? What is the agenda behind this? Why are we seeing Hollywood films about this all of a sudden? How are all these things related? Why are all these things occurring in 2026? I mean, these things are going back decades, last century, the whole bit. I mean, I can give you countless examples to show you without any ambiguity that this is not like a sudden thing that's occurring. I mean, even the Tic Tac, famous Tic Tac video, that was in 2004. That's over 20 years ago. So there's a lot to talk about there, which I won't go into now. I'm trying to keep these videos briefer, which I never seem to do. But this is something to pay no attention to pay lots of attention to. But remember, there is a process here of moving the needle and changing the values, the belief systems, the views, what we actually consider reality to be in regard to this topic and what that's going to look like. And we're being drip fed this information. For example, the latest tranche that's been released, I've seen some of the footage. I wouldn't even bother looking at it. For me personally, I just don't see that as being anything relatively new or something like this. But I have been studying this topic since literally the 70s. So I've seen a lot come and go along the way. So however new you are to that, that it is exciting. I know people are having this superior attitude that this is just another operation and so on. Maybe it is, but it has effects. It produces effects that are not able to be controlled in a certain way. It's a little bit like undoing Pandora's box. So, for example, how are the world religions going to actually respond to this information and this new objective reality? It's not going to be a subjective thing anymore that I believe, this mantra, I believe in UFOs. UFOs, UAPs and it goes way further than that, are an objective reality. And, this is basically tying into the end of the Piscean age. The verb for the Pisces is I believe. And this is really even this idea of Christianity with faith and this connection to belief, to have this faith, this trust, this belief, which is characteristic of the Piscean age. I mean, I know that the equinoxes, the precession moves only about 1 degree every 72 years, but we are in this transition to more Aquarian values, which is the verb for the Aquarius is I know. So it's a knowing. It's moving from believing to knowing. This is a colossal shift because it also has deep metaphysical consequences in the sense that the middleman is cut out between you and the universe, between you and your higher self, between you and God. And there is this direct connection, which is more Aquarian, more unorthodox, and of this nature. So there's a lot to unpack. There's a lot to go into there, which will be part of my new body of work. So go to my website, anthonyo'flynn.com, sign up for the newsletter. There'll be plenty more information coming in July around all these themes. And if you are looking at things from an esoteric point of view, even from an occult point of view, occult means hidden. It's not necessarily a bad thing. If you're looking at it from the point of view of pure metaphysics, it's like you can look at things from the level of causality, which simplifies everything, cause and effect. Then it will create a state of deep empowerment, deep inner knowing, deep trust. And you can basically start to deconstruct this reality and not get caught up in the noise, which is really characterizing 2026. And you can focus on the signal, because the signal is having the qualities of the essence, of truth, of like a continuum, and also all the other beautiful qualities like equanimity and joy and so on. And it's the noise, which we're all experiencing, and it's very hard to completely disconnect from this. It really is. It's the noise, it's the added mental layer of confusion, of doubt, of uncertainty that is causing part of the suffering here, which is adding to the chaos, and people are becoming very reactive rather than responding to the situation, which is what I've been doing over 2026, and partly why I haven't been posting that much on social media is because I have been working with the cycles, working with the configurations, working with the transits, and ultimately working with my own inner calling, that trusting the way forward, that I'm honoring this path for myself, which is what I want to pass on to others. If you've got this far in the video, thanks so much for watching, and stay tuned. We are living through this profound global paradigm shift.